Hello, my name is Nicole Roberts. I'm the Community Engagement Manager with the St. Petersburg Downtown Partnership, as well as Project Manager for Car Free St. Pete. And today I'm joined by a few of our Car Free St. Pete committee members to talk to you more about the St. Pete Straza concept. It all started with the question, how can we make downtown St. Pete more walkable? We have some amazing amenities for pedestrians and bicyclists, particularly around our waterfront. Nice, wide, well-paved sidewalks that are connected with shops, markets, restaurants, and parks where you can relax and be in nature. Unfortunately, this does not translate to all of our streets in downtown St. Petersburg. Many are still over-designed by vehicular lanes and parking and create atmospheres where some pedestrians and bicyclists don't feel safe to get around downtown St. Petersburg. Additionally, we have seen a huge boom in micromobility options over the last few years. Between the new rentable e-scooters to one-wheels and pedicabs, it's important we create spaces for them to be able to access our downtown. So, we proposed the idea of the Straza, a combination between a street and plaza that creates green space with pedestrian priority, where people can get around downtown St. Pete car-free. This idea was embraced by our committee, so we decided to take to the streets to map out where might be ripe for redevelopment to implement the Straza concept. In November of 2021, we got some of our committee members together to do a bike ride around downtown St. Petersburg. Here are some photos from that day where we saw the wide variety of bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure we have around downtown St. Petersburg. So we decided to create some preliminary maps and renderings to help us illustrate and communicate this concept to the community. I'm going to pass it off to our committee member, Michael, to share some of these maps and renderings with you.
Thanks, Nicole. Here you can see our very preliminary plan for the Straza. We are still at the early stages of planning and implementation, and we expect that there will need to be adjustments along the way. But the basic idea of a linear park that will connect major destinations and attractions will remain at the heart of our vision. Let's walk you through the plan. Starting at the pier, we move west along 2nd Avenue North, passing Williams Park and then on to Mirror Lake and the St. Petersburg Shuffleboard Club. From here, we continue west with a connection to the Methodist Town neighborhood before turning south on 13th Street. The Straza then crosses Central Avenue and continues south to connect to Tropicana Field and the Gas Plant District. Here, it runs along Booker Creek and connects to the Pinellas Trail. We see this area as having the best potential to implement segments of the Straza in the near future. From Tropicana Field, the Straza heads east along 3rd or 4th Avenue South towards the Dali Museum, Mahaffey Theater, and Albert Whitted Park. The Straza then turns north along Bayshore Drive to connect back to the pier. You will notice that there is also a second north-south connection along 6th Street to provide a shortcut to Mirror Lake and facilitate phasing. You will also notice that there are dash lines branching off of the Straza. These indicate potential extensions of the Straza that could connect to adjacent neighborhoods such as Bartlett Park, Uptown, Historic Kenwood, and the Warehouse Arts District. Again, the map is preliminary and open for discussion. This aerial rendering highlights the route of the Straza and shows how it can be used to connect with adjacent neighborhoods and parks. But what will the Straza look like at ground level? It's important to keep in mind that the Straza may take on different forms as it traverses downtown St. Petersburg. In some segments, it may look more park-like with trees and green space as shown in this rendering. Someday it might even be possible to kick a soccer ball around with your kids or play shuffleboard in the middle of the street. In other segments, the Straza may function as what is known as a shared street, which allows for vehicular use, but at much slower speeds that are compatible with pedestrian activity. This would be used where vehicular access is needed to access existing garages or to preserve traffic flow, albeit at reduced speeds. Other segments may function more like plazas with activity nodes, including cafes and restaurants. As these example rendering shows, there are many possible variations of the design, but they all have one thing in common. They all prioritize people-oriented activities over vehicular traffic, creating places where residents and tourists can enjoy a safe respite, from the noise and pollution associated with vehicular-dominated streets. The Straza is all about enhancing quality of life for all residents of St. Petersburg. In fact, the Straza is part of a worldwide movement to reclaim at least some of our public streets for other functions besides just moving traffic. And now Brian is going to tell you more about this.
Let's take a look at some other examples of streets like this from around the world and a few closer to home. Shared streets, pedestrian priority boulevards, and linear park projects are taking off all around the world and the nation. Some of the most desirable cities feature pedestrian-friendly streets, which are often points of pride and destinations for locals and tourists alike, such as Las Ramblas in Barcelona. The city of Paris plans to reimagine its iconic Champs-Élysées Boulevard as a pedestrian and cyclist-friendly extraordinary garden. And the Netherlands has embraced the concept of a Wooner, or a living street, for quite some time, converting many car-centric streets into shared streets. Zooming in stateside, the city of Portland has begun creating a 6-mile green loop, and the city of Atlanta has its Beltline, which has generated a direct economic impact of nearly $6.2 billion in private development as of 2019, or a 10-to-1 return on investment. Moving closer to home, the city of Miami has its popular Underline below the Metro Rail corridor and has just recently approved the establishment of the linear public-private park called the Miami Baywalk Greenway. The city of Miami Beach has the world-famous Lincoln Road and Espanola Way, and most recently, it has converted large parts of Ocean Drive into a walkable, bikeable street. Even Coral Gables now has beautiful Giralda Avenue. All of these shared streets emphasize quality of life and promote small business development, which directly benefits from increased foot and multimodal traffic. Now, Aaron will be talking about how the Straza fits into the St. Pete Vision 2050.
How does this fit in with the city's other plans? The Straza fits in with the city's plans quite well. There are multiple, strong, mutual, overlapping connections between the St. Pete 2050 plan and the goals of the Straza. On community character and growth, both the city's plans and the Straza's plans seek to promote walkability as well as multimodal transportation options, as well as preserve open spaces and expand them when possible. On healthy communities, both the city's plans and the Straza's plans seek to create safe access to goods and services, enhance parks to promote active outdoor physical and mental health, and support age-friendly and universal design principles in city planning. The Straza promotes walking, bicycling, and getting outdoors in the fresh air and sunshine. The city's plans and the Straza's plans for health are in sync. On parks, open space, and recreation, both the city's plans and the Straza's plans seek to protect open space, service all ages and abilities, and support environmental preservation for biodiversity. The Straza would create more open green space for people of all ages and abilities to enjoy. Reclaiming green space certainly aligns with the city goal for environmental preservation. On transportation and mobility, both the city's plans and the Straza's plans seek to promote increased mobility options and modal equity, create safer streets, promote walkable streets, and support new transportation technologies. The Straza, much like the city's plans, promotes the use of multiple modes of transportation. Next up will be Sumitra, who will be detailing our implementation process.
Currently, every street is prioritized for automobile movement and parking, but we can begin by transforming a few blocks into pedestrian priority streets. Just like any other infrastructure project, we have phases planned to not disrupt the everyday life of St. Pete residents. In the following slides, we illustrate the phases we have outlined so far with a visual map of the downtown core as a base. We made this super short GIF to illustrate how these phases will be implemented. Upon completion of the main loop, the Straza will promote connections out to the surrounding neighborhoods, as you can see from the slide. And now Haley will address the concerns regarding the Straza that some of you may have.
I'm Haley, and I'll be addressing some of the common concerns we've been hearing about the Straza. I won't be able to get to my garage. Well, sure you will. You've probably seen signs that say local traffic only in neighborhoods around St. Pete. This would be a similar concept, permitting access for vehicles as needed. Planners would work with local emergency services departments to maintain emergency vehicle access. Or what about, you're going to take away my street parking? Most of the time, parking scarcity is a perceived issue and does not reflect reality. It can definitely be frustrating when you're circling that restaurant or venue searching for a place to park, but in reality, downtown St. Petersburg has more than 25,000 parking spaces, and there are many alternatives to this problem. A study by the Center for Neighborhood Technology, a sustainable development nonprofit in Chicago, found that between a quarter to a third of parking spaces around apartment buildings in many US cities just sit empty. Considering that the average car moves just 5% of the time, there's a strong case for cities to right-size the space they allocate for vehicles at rest. So in response to this concern, you can park personal vehicles directly outside the residence on city streets, and that's not always feasible and may require residents to use loading zones or park a block or two away. What about, we already have Central Avenue? Well, the vision for the Straza is substantially different than Central Ave. The Straza will be quieter, more park-like, and less dependent on commercial activity. There may be shops and cafes located here and there, but it is not intended to be a continuous commercial corridor like Central Avenue. In this way, it should complement, not compete with, the Central Avenue. Well, what about traffic jams, right? Uninterrupted traffic flow will cause traffic jams. The Straza utilizes low traffic volume streets. We know that cars compound traffic. By providing expanded pedestrian-friendly routes as proposed by the Straza, we can reduce the demand for roadway use by cars. Less cars, less traffic. Well, what about small businesses? We've heard that this might hurt small businesses. Au contraire, studies show that those who bike and walk actually spend more in commercial areas than visitors who do arrive by car. Creating or improving active travel facilities generally has positive or non-significant economic impacts on retail and food service businesses that are adjacent to or within short walking distance of those facilities. On to you, Nicole, for next steps.
Thanks, Haley. We initially announced this concept in the 2021 Downtown Development Guide, published by the St. Petersburg Downtown Partnership. And the concept really took our community by storm. As you can see, a lot of our local news stations and online magazines picked up the story and shared it. And it really started a lot of community chatter online, largely positive in support of the project. So we have started doing some community engagement. Earlier this year, we attended Localtopia, where we talked with community members to see if they were supportive of the concept and hear their feedback on how we could improve it. And we saw that there was huge support. We collected 250 email addresses from folks who wanted to stay informed and get involved with pushing this project forward. And we saw so many people giving their thumbs up and sharing, "Thank you for doing this." It was so exciting to see this hunger in the community. So if you are as supportive of this concept as we are, you might be asking yourself, how can I support it? Well, first, just go talk to your friends and family about it. This community conversation will be vital to us later down the road as we start to collect feedback on the project to improve it and try to push the project forward. If you are involved with a local organization or group that would like to learn more about the project and share your feedback, we invite you to reach out to us at our email, carfreestpete@gmail.com. We would love to come speak to your group. You can also visit our website for the latest updates and to share feedback via our feedback form. That can be found at www.carfreestpete.com/St. Pete Strazza. Or if you like to do things the old-fashioned way, you can write in a letter of support to the address on the screen, or let us know your feedback at that address as well. Thank you so much for taking some time today to learn more about the St. Pete Strazza. We really hope to create a place for all people here in St. Petersburg.